what I want to do is give you a quick update on Internet 2 Net Plus today, and talk a little bit, talk mostly actually about why I think Net Plus is important. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. I'll give you some status updates on some of these things. I'm going to go through this very fast, 30 slides. I really am going to do it in 10 minutes. So most of these slides I'm not going to talk about, and I'm happy to, if there's something in particular that you want to drill down on later on, I'll be happy to talk with you about it after I get back from the beach. I'm highly motivated. When I get done, I'm throwing the grandkids in the car. In the thunderstorm. So the basic premise, the whole idea behind Internet 2 Net Plus initiative is to reframe the conversation about how we consume cloud, particularly cloud-based services. Reframe the conversation with the vendors. And do a little bit of what vendors have been doing to us for years, which is mergers and acquisitions. And so we're kind of, for purposes of acquiring cloud services, we're kind of doing a merger. We're figuring out whether we can do this through Internet 2, rather than having to go out, all couple hundred of us, university members of Internet 2, go out and negotiate these agreements one at a time. And the vendors love that, to divide and conquer. So, which way do I go? There we go. So the value proposition for the vendors is, and so far they seem to be getting excited about this. There was a long startup time where they didn't really get it, and then they got it, and all of a sudden it looks interesting to them. The value proposition for the vendors is one contract. Now that's not actually playing out that way in practice. Some of the vendors, because of the nature of the services they're offering, are requiring a sort of a participation agreement from each university that signs up. But it's a very lightweight agreement. It's very boilerplate. So there isn't a separate contract negotiation with each university that signs up under the programs that are requiring a university by university contract. So we negotiate the contract once. These contracts are negotiated by a team of procurement and legal folks from 4 or 5 or 6 universities who are acting on behalf of the Internet 2 community, and they're typically chosen to be you want me to stop walking around, Kristen?
It's okay. It's okay.
Typically chosen to be representative of the whole Internet 2 community. So the theory is that by the time that group of procurement officers and attorneys has finished negotiating the contract, they will have surfaced the great majority of the issues that any of us would have brought up. And so far, that seems to be working. The first contract to come out of that pipeline was the contract with Box, and I handed the contract to Madeline Wessel, and she immediately went off and spent a couple of days reading it very carefully, and she was grinning from ear to ear the next time I saw her, and said that's the best software contract I've ever seen. So early returns on that are that this way of thinking about contracting is actually working and is likely to take a whole lot of work out of the system for both us and for the vendors. We're also, part of the value proposition is to relieve the vendors of all of the heavy lifting of user account management and identity proofing. So we're requiring to participate in Net Plus that you be a member of InCommon and that you stand up shieldily and take advantage of our credentials, use our credentials rather than yours. You must also connect directly to Internet 2, and so we are delivering services to our members over our network that we already bought and paid for, and the vendor doesn't have to pay for a ton of commodity traffic in order to deliver their services to our users. So we're taking real cost out of the system for the vendors, taking real cost out of the system for us by using these pieces of infrastructure, this federated identity and this network that we've already bought and paid for other reasons. And we're adding a lot of value on top of that. So this is really taking off fast. We went through that. You'll see me talking about Net Plus potential service providers in one of 4 categories. The research incubator category, this is, we have an idea, we have no idea whether this is an interesting service for people, we don't know if it'll even work. But we're looking for some potential customers to help us work it out. Service validation, this is the point at which the service looks like it's a pretty good, solid service, but we need to try it out in practice. Early adopter, basically, we know what the service is, we know what the business model is. We're just looking for some final validation that this is ready to go, and then, of course, general availability is pretty self-explanatory. I'll talk about some of these in detail in a little while, but as you can see, we've got a sizable chunk of the cloud vendor community signed up for this, participating in one way or another. There's one really obvious vendor missing, Amazon. Amazon has a toe in the door there, and we're still talking about them coming in formally as a provider. There's another slice you can take through this, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but a lot of people get really interested in this. What kind of box, cloud box, do they fit into? I'm not going to spend any time on that today. And then I think this is important. There are going to be different classes of services that are more or less customized for us. One of the things that we want to be able to do through Net Plus is to take advantage of cloud services that already exist. We just want to get access to them, and we want to address our core concerns of security and contracting, and we want to get a good deal, but we don't want them to completely re-engineer the service for us. So that's a major category of cloud service that we want to take advantage of that we're struggling with right now because of some of these basic concerns, and going at this in a consortial way lets us get at those core concerns of security and access in a fairly efficient way without the vendor having to redo their services over and over again for a bunch of different campuses doing this kind of stuff slightly different ways. They can do it once. And so Box is a great example of that, although Box shows up in, I think they actually list Box in this category. I don't agree. I think it's in a different category. But you know, we're interested in a bunch of stuff that falls into these two spaces. It's a fabulous service. We want to use it just the way it is, as long as we can use our own credentials and as long as we can get to it over our own network. The Amazon AWS stuff very much falls into that category. We want to get rid of the transport charges. If you look at compute or storage on Amazon's cloud, the compute and storage are a pretty good deal. Transport in and out of Amazon's server locations is really expensive. And so we want to walk in and say, hey, got my own cable. Why don't you waive those transport charges for me? And if we can get them to do that, then all of a sudden Amazon's compute and storage look really attractive. So, but other than that, we don't want them to re-engineer their services. We just want them to point the routes over at our router instead of their router. So, and then sometimes there are going to be services that are customized for higher education. I'll talk about one of those in a minute as an example. And then some things are just going to be co-marketed. They won't be any different at all. They'll just have the Net Plus stamp put on their forehead. Like I say, I don't actually think Box is a design service. I think it's more of a special offerings term, but you could get into a big argument about that. Basically, what we're getting is, and this is in, Box deal is in general availability now. We've talked about that at some length, and we're looking hard at it here, trying to figure out how Box would integrate into our infrastructure and how we would pay for it. Because it would cost us $115,000, $120,000 a year to sign up University of Virginia, and we've got to figure out what we can turn off to generate that recurring money. But basically what we're getting is the commercial service. It's more or less what you're getting if you went out and paid Box for a personal paid account. The HP deal, turns out, is focusing on very high-end business kinds of computing. HP SHI is a hosted services offering, and SHI works in the healthcare and large corporate space, running enterprise resource planning systems like our PeopleSoft and Oracle e-business suite. So very highly secure, HIPAA compliant, all of that kind of stuff. It's focused at that high end, and they are in fact building a custom solution for higher education. And that's not ready yet. They're working on that. CenturyLink, Savvis is another huge hosting outfit. They're actually looking at offering kind of commodity hosting services and colon services for higher education. Then there's a bunch of stuff that we're getting a special deal, but we're basically getting the basic service. Adobe is Adobe Connect. Astra is going to offer basically a hosted telephone system for higher education for universities who want to source their telephone system someplace else. Level 3 is offering trunking over the internet, long distance calls, basically. Dell, we're working with on a bunch of different things. One of the first things Dell is rolling out is their hosted desktop, basically the Hive, but hosted, and some of their hosted servers and storage. Course load McGraw-Hill, this is the electronic textbook pilot that we're already participating in. We'll be going into phase 2 in the fall. We've got, I think, 19 courses and a little under 800 students participating in the fall pilot. And then in the co-marketing space, we're basically consuming off-the-shelf services. We're just getting a special deal and connecting through Internet 2 and using our credentials. So Komodo is digital certificates. Duo is both hardware tokens like the iKey plus two-factor authentication for smartphones. So you can use your iPhone or your Android phone instead of an iKey for a lot of stuff. Desire to Learn is their hosted lecture capture system, and so Leela's taken a good close hard look at that, and we haven't seen the final terms on that yet, but that could be an attractive lecture capture approach. Evo is a hosted multi-site conferencing system. We probably won't get too excited about that because of the 4BA initiative. We've dumped a lot of money on conferencing infrastructure. SDG, I can't honestly remember what that is. And then there are some providers that look a lot more like us. So Merit Network is the research education network in Michigan. They are providing hosted electronic mail and some other services like that that we probably won't get too excited about. DuraSpace, actually we were a founding member of DuraSpace. This is hosted electronic repositories in the cloud. And CNIC is the California Research and Education Network. And CNIC has done a deal with Amazon. CNIC has extended their state fiber network into Amazon's data centers in California, and is kind of doing a prototype of what full Amazon AWS for all of Internet 2 would look like. So there's a little bit of better pricing, access via a research and education network rather than the commodity network, but it's not the full deal yet. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details about these. I'm just going to answer questions. Is there anything, go back to that slide, anything that people want to talk more about?
Is this all available on the Internet 2 site?
Yes, it is. Yeah, including this slide deck is up there.
What sort of time frame do you think we'll be doing things on the cloud as opposed to local servers?
Yeah, so I think what we're, so there are at least two different parts of the answer to that question. And what we're doing with Internet 2 is addressing one of the components of that, which is the contracting and security and access kind of component and cost. And we think we're having a lot of success with that. I think actually at this point, the Net Plus initiative is in fact cranking out services faster than campuses can consume those services. Because the other thing that you have to do, which is really non-trivial, is figure out, is a particular hosted service a better deal for you than providing it locally? That's not always the case. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Depends on what you're going to do with it. Depends on your cost for providing services, which vary from university to university, region to region. And if you decide that it looks like a good deal and you want to go down that path, frequently you have to figure out how you're going to re-architect your